Hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 9th of August 2024, including Casey Affleck and Matt Damon in Apple TV's heist comedy The Instigators, and romantic drama The Company You Keep on Alibi and You.
And we'll also be checking out the British version of dating show Love is Blind on Netflix and visiting parallel universes in Zoe Lister-Jones's ITVX comedy Slip. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Netflix drama House of Guinness, written by Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight and featuring James Norton, will follow the fortunes of the heirs to the brewery empire in the 19th century. Guinness. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, Prime Video's The Boys 1950s set prequel Vought Rising will explore a murder mystery linked to the origins of shady superhero organisation Vought and the early days of Soldier Boy and Stormfront.
Pretty good selection for you this week. Plenty of variety. We're going to start on Apple TV Plus with a new feature-length comedy called The Instigators. It arrives on Friday the 9th of August, and here is a clip.
You the Marine?
Yeah.
You the ex-con?
Yeah, I did time, but you only gotta cast aspersions at me, guys.
I'm
Go.
trying.
Good. Still talking.
No alcohol detected.
Been about a week. The mayor's gonna be holding a party on election night. And there's gonna be money there, like none of you bums ever seen.
Two big names headlining in this one, Hannah, Casey Affleck and Matt Damon, who were childhood friends in Boston. They've worked together quite a lot, including on Good Will Hunting, in which Casey's brother Ben co-starred with Matt. They're also in Oppenheimer, and they're reunited in this, which is set in Boston. It's a comedy crime caper. So Matt Damon is playing Rory, who is an ex-Marine who has problems with his wife and his son. He's cash-strapped. And then Affleck plays Cobby, who is an ex-con. So I don't want to say too much about the plot because I don't want to ruin it for people, but each for their own reasons, they get involved in this heist, which is going to target a corrupt politician, a corrupt mayor, played by Ron Perlman, a.k.a. Hellboy, during an election night party where they're expecting lots of cash to be there, ill-gotten gain. It all goes wrong. We're straight into the action, by the way. I love that. It's just straight in. This is what we're going to do, straight into the heist, which is great. Quite an important character in the unfolding drama that is Rory's therapist, Dr. Donna Rivera, who's played by Hong Chow. Toby Jones, the wonderful Toby Jones, is in it as assistant to the mayor, the corrupt mayor. It's directed by Doug Liman, who worked with Matt Damon on The Bourne Identity. What I will say is I really enjoyed it. It clips along at a terrific pace, and if anyone has ever stolen a movie, it's Casey Affleck in this, who is just priceless. His character is great, gets all the good lines. He's a real pain in the neck, this character, but in quite an amusing way. The dialogue is terrific. You've got some great stunts. You've got people like Ving Rhames pitching up. So yeah, I thought it was very enjoyable, really well done. A thoroughly entertaining crime caper. Recommended. What did you think, Hannah?
Well, it's certainly action-packed, isn't it? As you say, right from the very beginning. It's kind of right from the off. You're in there. I really enjoyed it, actually. Casey Affleck, as you say, is kind of the star of the show, and the script works really, really well for him. And I don't know. It feels to me like something a little bit different for something that is, I don't know. it's something that's sort of, I'd say, action-packed, but it's funny. It's sort of something for everyone. Because I think when I first saw this, I thought, I'm not sure this is actually for me. But the relationship between Casey Affleck and Matt Damon is also really nice, isn't it? It's kind of, there's that sort of secondary layer, if you like, to this. So it's not just them, you know, being silly and, you know, silly criminals and, you know, the way they go about doing things is obviously altogether wrong, but their relationship is very true. So I found it really quite funny and something quite different.
Quite a change of pace now. Over on Netflix, arriving on Wednesday the 7th of August, we have dating show Love is Blind UK. And here's a clip.
Gentlemen, hello! Welcome to the experiment that seeks to answer one very simple question. Is love blind?
I'll rate that.
Ladies, you will choose someone to marry without ever seeing them.
Yeah, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but I think there's 10 episodes in this, I think. And this is the UK version of the show, so some people might be aware of it, or if you look it up, you'll see that this isn't its first outing, but it's Emma and Matt Willis's baby, because they say they binge watched the whole of this kind of this is a global dating show, and they kind of binge watched it all and got massively hooked, and I can see why. But when I first watched it, I thought, well, what was the difference between this and Married at First Sight? Because essentially it says it in the title, Love is Blind. So if there are these pods, and the people are put into the pods, but they can't see each other, they can only hear each other's voices. And so I suppose it's like speed dating. I think they have a very small amount of time, like 15 minutes, something like that, at the very beginning, to kind of find out whether they like the sound of that person's voice, whether they're interesting, and then they kind of whittle it down to people that they have real interest with. And it's only when they get engaged do they then meet each other. But of course, you know, is love really blind? Do you really fall in love with someone's voice and what they're saying? Or when you see somebody, you know, are you still physically attracted, or are they not really all they seem? And a bit like Married at First Sight, you know, of course, you know, beauty is only skin deep, as we all well know, and also you just don't really know the person. How can you possibly know the person, even in this situation where some of the couples were spending hours in the pod together before they met each other? You're still not enough time to really know somebody and know them well enough to marry them, I would argue. But of course, it makes for great television, and indeed it really does. I mean, I am a fan of Matt and Emma Willis, and I think that they, you know, as a duo, they work really, really well. They haven't shied away from their own troubles, so it feels quite honest and true from them as well. And they gel quite well together, I think, on the show. I mean, there's lots of tears, there's tantrums, there is the, you know, because somebody might fancy the same person as somebody else. So, you know, they've got it's quite gritty in places. It can be quite nasty in places. It brings out the worst in human nature in places. But of course, I go back to it, this makes great TV. And of course it does. So, you know, it's no wonder that this has been a success globally. I'm sure it will be a success here, because it although it's very similar to Married at First Sight, which I know Ian, you and I are both fans of. It's just slightly different, but it feeds to that same kind of interest that we have, and just seeing people sort of laid bare. I mean, they're all people that have been on dating apps and haven't had any success with them, and just want to try something different. I mean, it's a social experiment, really, is what it is. And you're a fly on the wall, and you come for the ride. So it's a Netflix production. It's good. It's got Love Island vibes a little bit about it in places, I think. So it's kind of all reality shows in this vein, kind of souped up into this. So I think people will like it. Did you like it, Ian? I think you probably did.
Yeah, I didn't think I would, even though I am a Married at First Sight addict. But yeah, it's a good format, isn't it? But cast your mind back, and well, to when I was a young lad, and of course, blind dates. the original dating show when three people lined up behind a screen and answered questions such as, if you were a piece of fruit, what would you be and why? And that goes to number one. So obviously they spent quite a lot more on this. Emma Willis, she's such a natural, isn't she, as a TV presenter? She's made a brilliant career change. And Matt is fine in this, I think, as well. And yeah, they've kind of reversed Married at First Sight in that they do get to know each other first, but in these pods, so they're talking sort of through a wall to each other, and then they meet. Whereas, of course, Married at First Sight is you meet the person on the wedding day, and then you get to know them. The essence, the enjoyment, I think, of shows like this is you decide who you hate, who you love, who you think should be together, and who you think shouldn't be together. And already I decided who I hate. There's one very annoying woman who is extremely overexcited all the time. It's a good format. What I would say is, I mean, yeah, the premise allegedly is they want to find out if love is blind. Well, that's not, they don't really. But I think it would have been more interesting if they've just got lots of really good-looking people, basically, which I think they might have missed a trick there. I think they should have mixed it up a bit, you know. They're all really good-looking. They're all too good-looking. But
Yes, you're so right.
there are, I mean, it's obviously a very successful format because I also had a quick look at the American version on Netflix. There's a Mexican version on Netflix. So obviously this is just something that has really landed and is just being, you know, remade all around the globe. So, yeah, it's good fun. If you like things like MAFSA and, Blind Date, for those who remember it, you can like this. Over on ITVX, arriving on Thursday, the 8th of August, we have a new comedy series called Slip. And here's a clip.
I didn't want to wake up this morning. I just always feel like being asleep. Like life is a dream.
Love you.
Love you. Where nothing really happens.
Yeah, I was just asking how you're doing as, like, more of a courtesy.
Oh, right.
This is very much the baby of Zoe Lister-Jones, who created it, directed it, and she stars in it. And she's very, very good, I have to say. It's a 7-parter. So she's an American actor and filmmaker. She's been in New Girl and Life in Pieces. And her character is May Cannon, who, people always have unlikely jobs in TV shows, don't they? So, of course, she's an assistant museum curator. Know lots of them. And she is married to a struggling writer called Elijah, played by Whitmer Thomas from the wonderful Glow, Glamorous Ladies of Wrestling. Yeah, so there's a really good sort of montage sequence which very imaginatively and effectively sort of portrays the monotony of their daily married life. So it's almost like they're almost kind of living in separate worlds. He's always just, each of them just staring at their phones. They're not really communicating. They're not having sex. And they kind of, it just feels like, well, she wrote it apparently when she was going through a breakup herself. I don't want to give too much away, but anyway, she's very dissatisfied, and she has a one-night stand with this musician Eric, who is played by Amar Chadha Patel from Willow. Well, I think I can give a little bit away. Anyway, and she wakes up the next morning, and, well, we did Quantum Leap recently, didn't we? She discovers that her life is totally different. She's married to Eric. She's not married to Elijah anymore. So it's quite weird. And this is going to keep happening. So it seems to be basically every time she has sex with someone new, she goes into this parallel universe that's a new version of her life. Some of the people that she knows are still in it. So she's going to be in a same-sex relationship with a daughter in one sort of timeline. She's going to be married to a stockbroker in another. So it's really funny. It's really original and fresh. Zoe is terrific in the lead role. It's very stylishly done, I think. And yeah, it's just a great idea. I guess it's a kind of comedy / sci-fi in a way. So yeah, I absolutely loved episode 1. I thought it was great. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, it is a bit different, isn't it? It's quite fun. I think you'd think once she slipped once, she would sort of know what was going to happen. But I suppose, maybe not once, but certainly twice. And so she kind of, although she's not the agent of her own change, she kind of is, because she's the one that's doing the action that then means that she has this other life. And what it makes for is I don't know if you find this, but you get involved with this relationship, and you're, the first one is really sort of a dull marriage, they're just sort of plodding along, it's just there. And then it's a bit exciting, and then what does that mean? You get on board with each relationship, and as quick as that's happening, it's on to something else. I like the premise of it though. It's quite different. It's quite pacey because of it. And as you say, it's very it's all about Zoe Lister-Jones, isn't it? This is kind of her baby. This is very much I suspect her kind of brainchild really, and kind of. I don't know. I was trying to think when I was watching this whether there was anything else that's like it, and I don't think there is really. But then, apart from sort of physical changes when you become somebody else or take on somebody else's life, or some of those futuristic ones we've talked about where they're injected with something and then they change in someone else's life, and it's really quite terrifying. This is kind of different because it's sort of firstly it's funny, but secondly, it feels much more. It's not got that underlying nastiness about it. There's no sort of. It's not evil, it really is it. Whereas a lot of them kind of are, and they change into somebody who's totally different. She remains the same. It's just the life surrounding her. So yeah, I find it really interesting, and I think that fun, and I think that anyone watching it will be like, right, stay with him, stick with him, don't sleep with anyone else, stick with him. That's the best one. Stay there. But she struggles with that, it seems.
Well, we're going to finish over on Alibi, Sky box sets, Virgin TV box sets, and Now TV. Oh, as well as You, which is the streaming platform formerly known as UK TV, with another American series, a drama series this time, which arrived on Tuesday, the 6th of August. It's called The Company You Keep, and here's a clip.
Relationships. What a racket.
A shell game to conceal who you really are.
So, what do you do?
I'm a yoga instructor. You?
I'm a pageant queen turned rocket scientist.
I bet those pageants really prepared you for NASA, though.
Well, this had me when I knew, and I have to try and say his name correctly, Milo Ventimiglia in it, because anybody who has watched This Is Us, which has an inordinate amount of episodes, I must say, but I've watched them all. He's in it, and I just love him. He's just brilliant character. He's nice to look at. He's got a nice voice. He's the whole package. He seems a very nice person. Apart from in this, it's a slightly different character, but I still love him just as much. Anyway, that's enough.
So love isn't blind then? No.
Love is not blind when I look at him. No, it is not, Ian. Anyway, I must stop my gushing and fawning over Milo Ventimiglia, because honestly, I can't stop looking at him. No, I need to stop. Right, he plays Charlie Nicoletti in this. He's a con artist, and they're kind of a family of con artists, really. But they own this bar as a front, so it's just a front for everything else that they do, and that's that life. So that life is kind of rowdy and difficult and naughty and escaping the law. On the flip side of that, we have Emma Hill, who's played by Haena Kim, she's an undercover CIA agent. Now, before all this, her husband has been having an affair right under her nose. She hasn't realised, then it all comes out, and she's kind of in a bad way. Move forward, and these two meet. Now, they're both very good looking, a very good looking couple, and their flirtation and their chit chat and what have you leads from one thing to another, and quite a passionate relationship starts up between the two of them. But of course, what he does and what she does kind of clashes, because, you know, he doesn't want her to find out that he's a criminal, even though he kind of jokingly does actually tell her that he is a criminal. I don't think she believes him. She says, I'm CIA, and I don't think he believed her initially. But of course, as time goes on and they get more and more kind of into each other, you know, are these two worlds, you know, are they going to collide? Because she's after a gang that is part, or is to do with Charlie. So it's quite, it's really passionate. I was hooked very, very quickly onto this. Is not just because of him, I promise you. I was hooked really quickly because it's got all the different sort of levels. So it's pacey. It's quite action packed. There are a few things I think that aren't obvious in it. It's got this whole romance thing, which is just another layer to it, and I suppose a little bit predictable. But it's the family, his family as well. They're great. You know, they're con artists, but they kind of, they're likeable. They are likeable. I liked them a lot. And you want to see him kind of become good almost. But how can these worlds ever be? How can these two, despite them absolutely adoring each other and having very passionate romance, you know, how can they overcome the fact that one of them is on the right side of the law and one of them isn't? And that this is where this is at. So it's 10 parts. I just watched the first episode, and I'm a fan already. Ian?
Well, I've just realised that the theme of this week's pod is relationships, and especially relationships that are difficult. We all like things about cons and sort of stings, don't we? So it opens up this family who own a bar together and also are a team of con artists. You know, it's the old story. And also they only sting baddies. That's the other thing about them, which again is stretches belief. But anyway, so they carry out this sting, and I quite like the sting element of it. That's always fun. But poor old Charlie is double-crossed by his fiancée, who dashes off with all the cash. Yeah, so then they're going to make they come up with a new plan. Obviously, they're going to be a series of cons as the episodes go on, and that's quite fun. If you like kind of, you know, pretty cheesy old TV series like Mission Impossible. Yeah, the second sting is against this sort of religious. He's a preacher who sort of is involved in some kind of money laundering. So yeah, off they go on another sting, and it's like the family are all in it together. And yeah, there's this meet cute between Charlie and Emma in a bar, and obviously they don't tell each other what they actually do as a job, and then they bump into each other again, and you know what's going to happen. But I kind of liked it in a way. I especially like the actor playing Charlie's dad, William Fixner, who's done loads of stuff, great character actor, including things like Black Hawk Down. I found episode 1 perfectly enjoyable, though I kept sort of going, oh, come on. Yeah, it's a good bit of escapist fun. Now, we've got to that time, Hannah. We find out what you've been binge watching on all week when you should have been working.
Well, I'm afraid I have been marginally distracted by the Olympics, but how brilliant are the Olympics? I mean, just fantastic. And also, my children, my eldest has got into Gossip Girl, so I'm afraid I've been snacking on that too.
Nice. Well, I watched a very good sports documentary called Senna on Netflix, which is all about the Formula One driver Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian, and all about his rivalry with Alain Prost. And yeah, tissues at the ready for that one, because it's very, very moving. And because I recommended the comedy Friday Night Dinner to my sister, which has arrived on Netflix just recently, I went right back to the beginning of that, and it's just as good as I remembered. Well, we've just got time to look ahead to next week's offering, so what's on the binge watch menu, Hannah?
Well, a severed arm, yes, you heard me right, lands Vince Vaughn's Florida cop in murky waters in hard-boiled comedy thriller Bad Monkey, which is on Apple TV+.
And a lad's holiday takes a terrifying turn in the new comedy drama Stags on Paramount+. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,
watching.